Floor 4.
What's this?
I just want
Two.
Imagine walking into a crowded bar, smiling at the security camera, and then vanishing from the face of the earth. No back doors, no hidden exits, just a solid brick building surrounded by witnesses and cameras. This is not a magic trick. This is the terrifying, real-life paradox of Brian Shaffer. On April 1st, 2006, Brian Shaffer, a brilliant 27 years old medical student, walked into the Ugly Tuna Salona in Columbus, Ohio. The security camera recorded him entering, but despite a massive police investigation, looking through every single frame of footage from every camera in the area, Brian was never seen leaving. It's as if a clip dried out of our reality. For 20 years, detectives, FBI agents, and internet sleuths have asked the same impossible question: how does a 6'2" adult man completely disappear from inside a locked room? To find the answer, we have to look closer at the dark pieces of the puzzle Brian left behind and the strange anomalies that occurred on that fateful night. To understand why Brian might have vanished, we must look at the immense weight he was carrying. Just 3 weeks before his disappearance, his mother, Renee, passed away from cancer. Brian was completely devastated. He was a top medical student, but the pressure of his exams, combined with the agonizing grief, was tearing him apart from the inside. On the night of March 31st, spring break had just begun. Brian decided he needed to escape his thoughts. He went out for a night of heavy drinking with his close friend, Clint Florence. They moved from bar to bar, downing shot after shot, but witnesses noted that as the night grew older, Brian's behavior became increasingly detached, as if he was physically there, but his mind was already somewhere else. Let's reconstruct the exact timeline of the glitch. At midnight, Brian and Clint met up with another friend, Meredith. At around 1:15 a.m., they arrived at the Ugly Tuna Salona. Riding the main escalator up to the entrance, the security camera clearly captures Brian. He is wearing a green striped shirt, jeans, and a smile. He looks happy. But this camera would soon become the central nightmare of the investigation. At 1:55 a.m., just minutes before closing time, Brian separated from his friends. The camera catches him outside the bar doors again. This time, he's talking to 2 young women. After a brief conversation, Brian says goodbye, turns around, and walks back inside the bar, disappearing from the camera's view. At 2 a.m., the lights turned on, the bar emptied, but Brian never walked back out. When the bar closed, Clint and Meredith waited by the escalator for Brian. The crowd thinned out until they were the only ones left. They called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Soon he had walked home alone. They left. Days later, when Brian failed to show up for a flight to Miami with his girlfriend, Alexis, the police officially launched the hunt. And that's when they realized the physical law of the building had been broken. The Ugly Tuna Salona was a fortress. It had only one public exit, the escalator. Police reviewed every single second of the security footage from that night, manually tracking every single person who entered and exited. Every single person was accounted for, except Brian. There was an emergency exit, but it led directly into a heavily fenced, muddy construction site. Investigators checked the mud. There were absolutely no footprints. As the case grew cold, suspicion suspicion fell heavily on Brian's friend, Clint. He was the last person to see him alive inside the bar. When detectives asked Clint to take a polygraph lie detector test, everyone in Brian's life agreed except Clint. He flatly refused, immediately hired a criminal defense lawyer, and refused to speak to the police ever again. Did Clint know something? Or was he just protecting himself from a broken system? Then, 5 months after Brian vanished, a terrifying anomaly occurred. His girlfriend, Alexis, called his cell phone every single night just to hear his voice. But in September 2006, the phone didn't go to voicemail. It actually rang. It rang 3 times. The cell phone tower tracked the signal to Hilliard, Ohio, 14 miles away from the bar, but nobody answered. Was Brian out there in the dark, watching, or did his phone line cross into another dimension? Theories are wide. Some believe Brian was murdered inside the bar, and his body was hidden inside the bars or smuggled out in a band's equipment bags. Others believe he used the construction site to intentionally disappear, changing his clothes, putting in a hat, and escaping to start a completely new life, under a fake name to escape his grief. But the most unsettling theory is that Brian simply walked into a physical glitch in our world, stepping into a space between walls where the cameras couldn't see, and where time doesn't exist. To this day, the case of Brian Shaffer remains completely unsolved. A man walked into a room and never walked out. Did he escape the matrix of his own life? Or did reality simply erase him? If you want to unlock more of the world's deepest anomalies, hit subscribe and click the next file on your screen. And never forget, reality has built-in errors. Sleep well.